Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're having a fantastic day, and to make it even a little bit better, in this video, we're going to be covering one ability tip for every Valorant agent. Now, that being said, you might have heard some of these, but I guarantee that there's something that you do not know in this video, so watch to the end to make yourself that much better of a player. If you like Valorant news, Valorant content, or just enjoy the channel, smash that sub button. But without further ado, let's just jump right into it, shall we? Now, the first character we're going to kick it off with is Raze, and the ability in question is her Blast Pack. Now, Blast Pack, of course, is useful for a lot of things. Breaking down sage walls, fleshing out corners, and all sorts of things. But in my opinion, the most powerful aspect of Blast Pack is using it as a mobility tool. So it can be used as a mobility tool in a number of situations. The most obvious ones are getting yourself on top of boxes or shooting yourself in the air to set up for your rocket launcher. But I'm going to tell you some underrated things you can use it for. Specifically, one of my favorite ways to use it is actually throwing it kind of out in the open near myself and using it to hard peek an angle where I can essentially use it to explode me back behind natural cover. This actually gives me the flexibility to peek out aggressively and still giving myself something like a pseudo tailwind to get back behind natural cover, which is incredibly useful and powerful, and it's something that I don't see enough players do. On top of this, I've seen streamers like Mendo use it to easily dodge all kinds of abilities and even ultimates like Sova's Hunter's Fury by using it to launch yourself vertically up in an unpredictable pattern. So definitely try it out, use it, try to think of it as a mobility tool, and when you start looking at it in that capacity, its potentials exponentially increase and the amount of value you get on the hero exponentially increases as well. Now, moving on to the next character on our list, we have Sage. And my tip I would give to you about Sage is Sage's heal. And often, you frankly don't have the luxury to slow roll your heals. What do I mean by slow rolling? Slow rolling is waiting and saving your heal to maybe heal yourself a little bit more than the damage you took. Let's say you took something like 15 damage. Instead of just healing yourself right up, you wait and slow roll it. Typically, what I would definitely suggest you do instead is just use it off cooldown. Every time you get it, use it, because you never know when that little bit of health is going to matter. And oftentimes, if you use it instantly, you'll be able to get off more heals overall in a match, as opposed to slow rolling it and then potentially dying, not getting any more uses out of it at all. Now, while there are some scenarios where you could definitely pick one character directly over another, and in those scenarios, I would definitely prioritize things like health and what weapon they have and things like that. But in general, do not slow roll your heals. Don't be afraid to use it just to heal a little bit of health, and use it often. Now, moving on to character number 3, we have Cypher. And specifically, we're going to talk about Cypher's camera. Now, what you need to understand about Cypher is there's a general philosophy to use his camera, and it's about information and safety. The more information you gain from your Cypher's camera, the easier it is to spot and kill. So you trade that information for that safety. If it's more safe, you forego some extra information because you have to hide it in a much less information gathering spot, unless you're using a cheap spot like hiding it in the wall or something like that. Now, generally, what you need out of your camera can help you make the decision of safety or information. If you plan to leave the site and you simply need to know if the enemies have actually planted the site, I would go for less information, but with access to the site. You don't have to peek along sightlines with it, but you can use a close range camera that just tells you if some people are on the site. Now, if you want to use it to potentially hold longer sightlines or make a swing play, then giving up that little bit of security for more information can help you make a play on the enemy and gain more preliminary information. So it's a give and take for Cypher, and it's something that you need to think about every single time you use Spy Cam. Now, moving on to character number 4, we have Phoenix, and the ability in question is Firewall. Now, this is going to be a pretty simple tip because a lot of tips have already been said about Phoenix, but generally something that's underutilized is his Firewall and the fact that you can actually spiral it. If you rotate your camera incredibly quickly, you can actually spiral the Firewall in a near circle, completely covering the spike or potential reses or points like that. Blocking off LOSs from enemies can allow you to defuse a spike really quickly, set up a play, or simply disappear and regroup from the enemy. It's incredibly versatile, and I only really see straightforward walls even in streams at high levels, so I would definitely suggest you master this, practice this, and try to find some scenarios where it could be useful for you. Now, moving on to the next character on the list, we have Viper. And I'm going to show you one quick example right here, but there's actually many more potential Viper spots that set up Viper nade spots on the ceiling that block LOS. And something that's important is when you block LOS from the ceiling, if you are on a high ground at all, enemies can't see you at all. This means if you're up on the high ground, up on slight elevation, or anything like that, enemies will be completely unable to see you, and you can get these one-sided peek angles. So this is a way to actually turn this ability into actually an offensive tool and prevent enemies from pushing at the same time. Now, moving on to character number 6, we got to talk about Jett. I'm going to talk about specifically a playstyle with Jett that you should be using with Tailwind. So Jett is actually seeing a decent amount of pro play recently compared to what she used to, with pros actually using her tailwind to hold very aggressive angles. This allows them to take crossfires that almost no other character would safely take, because if the enemy tries to flush them out with utility, she can trade her tailwind to get back to her team and still didn't die to the utility. It allows a mix-up, her not to get punished, and now the enemy has to forever check that corner over and over again with utility, even if the Jett is not playing there. This threat of Jett holding aggressive angles actually forces the enemy to hyper-use their utility, which is very good over the economy of the game. Now moving on to the character number 7 on our list, we have Omen. And you already know about the Omen teleporter debate, where you jump into the teleporter after you initially teleport and you get out of it. I've already told you about that one specifically, but let's talk about this one really quickly, and this is the double orb teleport. It's one you might know, but for those of you who don't, you're setting up 2 orbs. You're setting up 1 orb near you in a choke and 1 orb in the enemy's backline somewhere. Now you don't want to make this second orb that obvious. You want it to have some sort of purpose, but the goal of this is for you to walk into the first orb and actually use your teleport to the second orb. This is an incredibly powerful tactic because you essentially get to sneak behind enemy lines for free. Now, the problem that happens with this tactic is if you put your second orb right in the middle of nowhere, it's going to be incredibly obvious that you're going to use it for this type of goal. So you need to actually set up your orb in a way that it looks like it's accomplishing something, so enemies don't know that your actual plan is to teleport inside it and make a cool flank play. Now moving on to character number 8 on our list, we're going to talk about Sova. Now, this is a trick that I've actually seen all over Reddit, but if you haven't seen it, it's incredibly powerful actually, and it's with the damage arrow. So, let's say you're in a 1v1 scenario and you're afraid you're going to lose the matchup. What do you do as the clock's ticking down? You take both of your damage arrows and you stand right above the planted spike that the enemy has to defuse. You fully charge each arrow with 2 bounces and shoot it straight up in the air right above the spike. What this will do is essentially create a multiple bounce arrow that if anyone tries to defuse will take damage from the shock arrows. Now, the cool thing about this is going to stall it for a great deal of time. Even if the enemy has a lot of health and they take damage from the first arrow, if it got them off the spike long enough for the spike to explode, they can't dodge the second one. It's an extremely powerful tactic for potentially stalling for time, and just like with Sova's ultimate, can win you a matchup even if on paper you would have lost it, which is incredibly powerful and really cool. So definitely check it out, and I want to see your clips in our Game Leap Discord, links down below. Now, the next character on our list is Brimstone. Now, with Brimstone, the tip that I'm going to give you is you can use one single smoke to actually debate enemies into using tons and tons of utility. The thing is, often enemies will definitely panic when they hear footsteps, gunfire, and a smoke, so they don't know information. The combination of all these things will typically cause the enemy to use things like ice wall, ice slows, all kinds of things like mollies and things like that to potentially dissuade you from rushing the point. With 15 seconds on one Brimstone smoke, often if you use even a single Brimstone smoke to block off LOS of a choke and wall bang multiple corners, you can essentially bait out tons of utility for your team, and while you're firing at one objective, most of your team can route to the other one slowly. This will usually heavily debate the enemy at the very least into using utility, but often members of the enemy team might even rotate altogether because, like I said, the combination of pressure plus information prevention really creates enemies to misplay into this combo, and I think it's something that's really underutilized on Brimstone. And then on top of that, you will still have multiple smokes left for potentially retaking the other site or to use later on. Now moving on to the last but certainly not least character on our list, we have Breach. And the ability in question we're going to talk about is actually his Aftershock. Now, something important about Aftershock is even though it has an over 2-second cast time, if the enemy is directly in the radius of Aftershock, they will die full armor and all. It will kill them straight up. And at the minimum, it will deal 60 damage. So what this means is this is not something that enemies can tank. This is something that enemies have to run away from. So if you think someone's in a corner, what you want to do is activate the ability and then wait, because the cast time is large. Like we said, you wait for enemies to swing through and you punish them from running away from your Aftershock. That is how you flush out corners and potentially get kills and punish enemies at the same time. It's incredibly powerful, and it pretty much prevents any enemies from hiding in cubbies against a Breach, because a Breach can heavily punish this playstyle. So definitely try it out in your games and force enemies to respect your power. Anyways, I hope this guide has been extremely helpful for you. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, definitely let me know in the comments down below. If you have any other video ideas or concepts that you want to see, please let me know down below. But that's all we got for you today. I'm Coach Mills, and until next time,